convene our regular meeting. Please stand for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will the clerk call roll, please?
Boland is absent. Counselor Dykstra.
Here.
Counselor Grizzle.
Here.
Counselor Nazar.
Here.
Counselor Rees-Camp is absent. Counselor Steinhebel.
Here.
Thank you. And first up, we have the consent calendar. We have the agenda for tonight. Appointment of Planning Commission, Josh Port, reappointment, alternate position, and Planning Commission, Lori Gehrig Karnowski, appointment. Board minutes, Trees and Trails Advisory Committee, council minutes, June 9th, 21, regular session, easements, Walker Road, tax lot 3700, and liquor license, full on-premise liquor license for Brasidius Brewing.
Move for approval. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve tonight's consent calendar. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All those opposed? Consent calendar has passed. And first up, I've got a couple proclamations here. On July 26, 2021, the city of Lebanon will celebrate the anniversary of the signing of the Americans with Disabilities Act, signing into law on July 26, 1990 by President George H.W. Bush to ensure the civil rights of people with disabilities. The act expanded opportunities for Americans with disabilities by reducing barriers, changing perceptions, and increasing participation in community life. The full promise of the act will be reached by remaining committed to continued efforts to fully implement the act. On the anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act, join the city of Lebanon in celebrating and recognizing the progress that has been made by reaffirming the principles of equality and inclusion and recommitting our efforts to reach full ADA compliance. Now, therefore, I, Mayor Paul R. Aziz, do hereby affirm that the city will continue to work towards full ADA compliance. National Night Out, August 3rd, 2021. Whereas the National Association of Town Watch sponsors a nationwide crime, drug, and violence prevention campaign entitled National Night Out on August 3rd, 2021. And whereas National Night Out provides a unique opportunity for Lebanon to join forces with other communities across the country in promoting cooperative police community crime prevention efforts. And whereas the community plays a vital role in assisting the Lebanon Police Department through local joint crime prevention efforts and by supporting Lebanon's National Night Out. And whereas it is essential that all citizens of Lebanon be aware of the importance of the crime prevention programs and impact that their participation can have on reducing crimes. And whereas police community partnerships and neighborhood safety awareness and cooperation are important themes of the National Night Out program. Now, therefore, I, Mayor Paul R. Aziz, hereby proclaim Tuesday, August 3rd, 2021 as National Night Out in Lebanon and call upon all citizens to join the Lebanon Police Department in supporting the annual National Night Out campaign. And just a note on that, it is going to be at Academy Square this year, as opposed to Ralston Park. So we always go to Ralston Park and that's the place. It's going to be at Academy Square, which I'm excited about because I think that that's been underutilized. And I think that's a great big space for something like this. And so it's gonna be fun.
Yeah.
Are you gonna be in the dunk tank or?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes, you are.
you are? Okay.
I'm running the dunk tank. You will be in the dunk tank.
The 3rd,
Oh, yeah.
August 3rd, 2021. Are you gonna be in the
No,
dunk tank?
my Montana trip that catches on my
No.
Montana trip.
Oh,
I've been on the
Trey's in
dunk tank plenty.
Yeah.
People have taken advantage of dunking the attorney.
All right.
I don't know why, but whenever I'm in the dunk tank, it's like a non-endless line of people. It's weird.
That's good. Okay, next up, we have public comment time. Citizens may address the council by filling out a testimony comment card prior to speaking and hand it to the city recorder. Each citizen is provided up to 5 minutes to provide comments to the council. The council may take an additional 2 minutes to respond. The city recorder will accept and distribute written comments at the speaker's request. Public comments can also be submitted to email by city recorder, et cetera, prior to 5 PM on July 13th. The city recorder will distribute comments to the mayor and council prior to the meeting. And we did receive one comment from Linda Ziedrich. I think everybody got that in their packet. So first up, we have Cassie Cruz from the LDA.
Good to see everybody in person. I'll have to look at my own face over Zoom
Look at
anymore. It's
that.
awesome. I can look at your faces. So downtown, oh my goodness, so much is going, great things are going on. We had our third concerts in the park, which brought close to, I think Bill accounted maybe just over 200 people. And to the point, and this is people going in and out, this is people spread out to the other side of the park, so across the water area. So people were kind of convening all throughout the park, which was great. And then even people sitting outside their homes, bringing out their lawn chairs and just sitting out and enjoying themselves. And then you see cars pull up and then they would have friends coming over. So it kind of created a little music right in people's home. Was it front stage or sorry, front row seating for people in their homes, which was awesome. So then, of course, we also have Summer Bands and Brews, which is going on, which is going really great this year. We have this week, we're going to end up having Inner Limits. They are a funk rock band coming. And then next week for Concerts in the Park on Tuesday, which is like the 20th, we're going to end up having Red Diesel, and they are a grassroots band. So that's, so I can't just say enough how much I appreciate our volunteers. If it wasn't for like the people actually uplifting these events, they wouldn't happen. So just, huge appreciation to them. And then of course we have our mural project that I've shared with you about. That is actually being pushed back a little bit. We have some local, actually professional artists in our area that had asked if they themselves could be the first ones to put up the murals and maybe kind of set that standard of professionalism. And then we'll have, of course, our students come in as well from LBCC. But also right now, a few of our med students, actually, they hold art degrees. So we're working with Comp Northwest to bring in some of their students, and they're kind of right now, I think bring the convening of the masterminds together and see how they can make that happen. So we will have, so like I said, push back a little bit, but that's fine because all these professional artists are telling me it's actually a little bit better to wait when it's not August in painting. It'd be better in September, October, even November on our less rainy days. So I felt a lot less stress. I was totally happy about that because I don't mind moving dates as long as we have a plan moving forward. And it's slowly but surely coming together. But other than that, we have First Friday, that's coming up in August, which is going to be our wine and art walk, which typically, as Rebecca knows, we have that in June, but because of COVID and a lot of our wineries being apprehensive, of course, with tasting and everything else, we just pushed it into August this year. So that's coming up in August, which that is a huge fundraiser for LDA and brings a lot of people to downtown. So things are just happening and plugging along and they're going great. So if you guys don't have any questions, I'm gonna head back to my seat. And if you do, I'm happy to answer anything.
Any questions?
So exciting to have events again.
Exciting.
I'm so excited.
Good
I'm
job.
excited to see everybody again. So yeah,
Very
anyways,
good.
thank you
Okay,
guys.
thank you.
I appreciate you.
Thanks. Okay, next up, Keith.
I've been to your city council meetings several times. And as you notice, seats are empty just about. And I've checked with my neighbors and everybody else. Nobody wants to show up because they don't have a voice. And I've talked with the attorney on the phone. I've talked with several others. And these little sheets don't tell me anything. I have a question on number 3, 4, 5, and 6. I'll just bring up number 3, authorizing submittal of an application or DLCD. I don't even know what that means. Can somebody explain that?
Well, that's in the packet. There, that information is in there.
I don't have a packet. I don't have a computer.
Well, what sheet are you talking about? The agenda?
Yeah,
How did you get the agenda?
City Hall.
Okay. And
They're only open from 9 to 5, 9 to 1.
okay. Well, each of these things is highlighted in the agenda, and the details are in the full package. It's online, it's available at the library. And that's how we do it. We've reduced, we used to print them out, but the cost is so expensive to print out a bunch of copies of them. It saves a lot of time and a lot of money. So that's why they're not printed out.
Well, you need to explain them before I come up. That's what, I've been to Philomath, I've been to several cities. I used to work construction.
Mhm.
And every town hall meeting that I went to, they would explain what they were going to bring up before the members come up and spoke. Now, I've talked to I think you're the attorney, one of the attorneys. I don't know how many attorneys you've got. I think just one. And he thought it was a good idea. And I spoke to somebody else, the fire.
Counselor Bolin, Counselor Bolin. The fire chief,
Yeah, the fire guy, whatever his name is. And he thought it was a good idea. What's the matter with you guys bringing those things before the people so that we know what you're talking about?
So if I could just ask a question, I'm not sure that I talked to you. I don't recall speaking to you. And there are other people in the office you may have spoken to. And I think the point is that this council and government does want you to have all the information that you want or need prior to a meeting like this. And we do everything we can to put that out in a lot of ways that appear not to be conducive to the way you get your information. So I think that it's not going to be too hard for us to figure out a way, if you requested on a public records request for a printed out copy of agenda items, I think we can make that happen. But I can assure you, at least for me, this is the first time I've heard about it. And I'm not saying you didn't talk to somebody else in the office. They might have passed you on to somebody else. But I think we can probably figure out a way to get you a hard copy before the meeting in some manner.
we make it available online, of course, and what you're saying is that's not good for you. But we made that choice as a council because sometimes our packets are 200 and 300 pages. And so by printing that out for all of us, for the staff, for the public, that was very onerous. So we said, we want it electronic. We want to be able to electronically read it. You can electronically access it always at the library.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If you guys bring these up here at the meeting, what's wrong with that?
Well, we will. When they come up, we are going to explain them and there will be the discussion. We have public comments now, and then we have the business that we do, and then we have public comments at the end when we're finished, so that if there was a clarification or you weren't sure on something, you would still have an opportunity to talk. State of Oregon law says that we just have to have a public meeting that you're available to come to give all the information, but it doesn't say that citizens have an opportunity to talk. That's a choice that each council can make that choice themselves. And our council has made the choice to do it twice. There are very few councils that I've ever seen that do it twice. They do it one time usually, and it's in the beginning, and that's it. And that's all you get to say. We actually have this second one so that you have an opportunity to bring things up after we've discussed it, which is an opportunity. We can't have citizens interacting with us as we're discussing this because it would take hours and hours and hours to have these meetings and it would just, wouldn't even make sense. So to be able to conduct the meetings, what we do is we have beginning and we have it at the end for you to have those comments. And as our city attorney said, we'll make an effort to get a copy of it if that's what you would like, if that is a way to help, if you can't get to the library or whatever it is. But it is available and we do have all that information in the packet.
So at the end of this, you guys don't pass it until we have a say. Is that correct?
No, we've been voted in to make decisions for the community. And that's when you have your opportunity is to make that decision is who you want to vote for. And then us as elected representatives make those decisions here. You can come and give input and tell us, and that's what we get from constituents is people tell us what they would like or what they don't like. And then we take that and weigh that and make those decisions from that.
And I will often have people read the packet online and contact me if they have a concern about something we're going to be voting on. I will have constituents read that online, contact me and say, I'm a little concerned about this, and address it with me as their city councilor first before we come, and I can help address that issue prior to voting.
So it doesn't do me any good to sit here and listen to all of this because you're going to vote on it no matter what.
Reading it beforehand and contacting your counselor, I think is the most effective way to interact with us. But you're right, you're not going to have to be able to address them tonight, each individual item before we vote on them.
Well, they didn't explain that to me at City Hall. I have one more thing that I'd
Okay.
like to say. if that's
Your
all
time
right.
is up, but we've had a chance to talk. So go ahead and finish up with the last thought.
I'd like to read Amendment 14. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges. And I said that because they're building these buildings by Walmart for migrant farmers. And they're doing it in Sweet Home also, I guess. And if they're illegals, they're breaking the law, the United States law. And if any of this has to do with that, you also are breaking the law when you allowed this to take place. Now, I want you to know that because there's going to be a petition brought to you because of this. A lot of people don't even know what's going on down there. And so there'll be a petition of 200 or 300 people at least. And you're going to have to get a big building to listen to them. So
Okay. Anyone else from the public? I don't think I see anybody else there. Okay. First up, we have a public hearing. The public hearing regarding vacating a storm drainage utility easement on Stoltz Hill Road is now open at 6:29 p.m. Your patience is appreciated as the city attorney goes through the required hearing procedures.
Follow the quasi judicial hearing procedures set forth. There we go. Set forth in ORS 197-763, the commencement of hearing, council shall announce any ex parte conflicts, contact or conflicts of interest. We'll start out with the staff report. We'll then allow questions of the staff by the council. We'll then have public testimony. The public testimony will have start with the proponent and any opposition. We'll then allow testimony of witnesses. Please note that in the public testimony portion, failure to raise an issue including constitutional issues or other issues related to the proposed conditions of approval, if any, accompanied by a statement or evidence sufficient to afford the council and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issues, precludes an appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals. We'll then close the public hearings and council will most likely make a decision tonight. With that, Mr. Mayor, you can open the public hearing and ask for ex parte contact or conflicts of interest.
Okay, do any counselors wish to declare ex parte contact, conflict, or bias in this case? Okay, see none. Is there anyone in the audience that objects to the notice that was sent in this case to the jurisdiction of this body to hear and consider this case? All right, the Engineering Services Director will provide a staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council. As part of the Applegate Landing project at the intersection of Stoltz Hill Road and Airport Road, one of the requirements or conditions of planning was that they provided drainage easement over a section of Burkhart Creek. And that was conditioned that way in order for us to potentially build a detention facility, which was outlined in our 1984 Storm Drainage Master Plan. We worked with Applegate and said, hey, look, we don't think we need this, but we better put the easement over the property, and it was platted that way. We'll have our new stormwater consultant, David Evans, who's doing the storm drainage master plan update, hit that thing first and go through the modeling. They did all that, determined that all the upgrades that we've made over the years, that there's really no reason to have a detention facility there. So all we're proposing to do is vacate that easement. There'll still be an easement retained on the east side of the property for a future trail. And with that, we have followed the ORS and basically put out our 14-day public notice. We've posted the property with the notice and would recommend that council pass the ordinance to vacate it. And I can answer any questions.
Tell me, what does vacate the easement mean?
So it means that, so right now the city has a legal easement over that portion of property. So we have the legal right to construct a stormwater facility should we choose to, or should we need to. What we're saying is we don't need that and we don't want to do that. And the property owner should just have full right of his property.
Easement will just go away.
The easement will just go away.
Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, I'll have the city attorney read the ordinance bill.
Ordinance bill number 2021-10, ordinance number 2966, a bill for an ordinance vacating storm drainage utility easement on Stoltz Hill Road.
Okay, entertain a motion.
Move for approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the drainage easement vacation on Airport and Stoltz. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? The ordinance has been passed. Thank you, Ron.
Mayor.
Regular session, amending section 1 of resolution 2021-09 to include delinquent sewer and storm drain assessments. Matt Apkin.
Mayor, council, good to see you again.
Good to see
Been a
you.
while since I've been here in person, so it's good to see everyone. Each year I come before you because we do our levying of tax resolution with the budget each year, so we know what we should budget for, because if you decided to change something like that, it would kind of screw up the budget. One of the things we don't know at that time is the unpaid sewer and storm drain charges that we have really no ability to collect by turning people's water off because these people don't have water accounts. storm and sewer only, or one of the others just by itself. They don't have a water account. So our ability to collect money from them comes from us certifying those fees to the county. They add them to their taxes, and then they're collected with taxes, and we're repaid that amount. So this year, I come to you with the amounts that we determined, which is $18,948.58 for sewer charges and storm drain charges of $4,291.46. So my recommendation would be that you approve us adding those to those properties' taxes for collections that way. Any questions?
Any questions?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
How many properties are we talking about?
That is a great question. I'm going to estimate that it's less than 30. I don't know the number off my head. I should have looked at that. And I don't think, yeah, I don't have that item right there.
I just wanted a ballpark figure.
Yep.
That's fine. And these levying will go on their individual homes.
It will go on their individual home taxes.
Mhm.
So really the calculation that we do, Oregon law requires that we take the last calendar year, and then we look at any payments that are made in the next 6 months from that, which is why we can't determine this amount until after July 1st each year. And so of the 12 months of the previous calendar year, if they make any payments in those 18 months, we subtract that off the amount, and then we can levy to the taxes the remainder.
And these folks have an option to pay this off early if they can.
So these
Correct.
people have an option to pay it every month or every quarter when we send them a bill. And so when they don't, then we then turn it to the county.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, have the city attorney read the resolution title.
Resolution number 2021-14, a resolution amending section 1 of resolution number 2021-09 to include delinquent sewer and storm drain assessments.
Entertain a motion.
Move for approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve resolution 2021-14. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed? Okay, the resolution is passed. Thank you, Matt. Number 3, authorizing submittal of an application for the DLCD Planning Assistance Grant. Kelly Hart. Hello. Nice to see you.
So good evening. The city of Lebanon has the joy of being categorized as a medium-sized city per the state's regulations, which means we're between 10 and 25,000 in population. With that designation, we have legal requirements that the state has imposed on us to draft certain documents and prepare for population growth for housing needs over a sunset of 20 years. So the city drafted a housing needs assessment, and now as part of the state laws that were passed in 2019, we have to do what's called a housing production strategy. The housing production strategy is going to take time and detailed analysis and professional assistance beyond the capabilities of what we have now. And so the Department of Land Conservation and Development, or DLCD, puts out grants to support cities to do these projects. And so what's before council tonight is a resolution to support our application for DLCD's approval to assist us with the consultants to put together the housing production strategy. So that is the request, and I'm available for any questions.
Okay. Questions? Have the city attorney read the resolution title.
Resolution number 2021-15, a resolution authorizing submittal of an application for the DLCD Planning Assistance Grant and authorizing the city manager to sign all appropriate documents associated with it.
Entertain a motion.
Move for approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve resolution 2021-15. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed? The resolution passes. Authorizing number 4, authorizing acceptance and appropriation of OCW COG Economic Resiliency Grant Kelly Hart. That's a mouthful.
Just a little bit. So good evening again. As part of the large federal funding package that was distributed across many different organizations, the Cascade West Council of Governments has a pot of money that they have set aside for a grant program for their economic resiliency program. This was a very quick grant application process, a very quick awarding process, and a very quick expending of funds process. And so as part of the eligible opportunities was to include art walks or something that would bring people into the downtown area. And so when we saw that that was an option of funding, we partnered with the Downtown Association to apply for the grant to support their art walk that is this August. And we were notified a week and a half ago that we were awarded the grant. So it's $4,000. And so what this does is it authorizes the city to accept that award and also appropriate it for funding. And so with that, available for any questions.
Good.
That's great.
I have a
Okay.
question, Mayor.
Question?
Were you like the only one that got that grant? Because nobody else did.
We received the grant, and I'm actually excited to report that the Mid-Valley Partnership Group, that's the rural 8 cities group that we work with on economic development, they were also awarded a grant to work on all the programming that was put on hold during the pandemic.
Mhm.
And so we were able to get a grant to start that up as well.
Well, great job as always.
Good. Any other questions? Okay, with that, we'll have the city attorney read the resolution title.
Resolution number 2021-17, a resolution authorizing acceptance and the appropriation of an OCWCOG Economic Resiliency Grant to help fund the LDA Art Walk and authorizing the city manager to execute the associated documents.
Move for approval.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve resolution 2021-17. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Resolution is passed. Thank you, Kelly. Number 5, amending section 8.04.10 of Lebanon Municipal Code concerning electric fence regulations. Kelly Hart.
Me again. So I believe it was last month that there was a discussion with the city council to, based off of a request from a business owner to allow for electrified fencing within the city beyond what our code currently allows. Currently, it only allows for the use of electric fencing associated with agriculture uses within the city. And the direction we were provided was, hey, go forth, review, and come back with something, and we'll evaluate it. So that's what we did. We surveyed and looked at over 15 cities and their ordinances with electrified fencing regulations, and we determined that they're all pretty similar, and they all look at pretty much the same 3 things, which is address emergency response, address conditions when there's a proximity next to populated areas, and then identify which zones in which electrified fences are to be allowed in. And so since the language is pretty close to almost identical for all of these 15 cities that we looked at, which was within the state and out of the state, we figured that we could safely put together a proposed ordinance for council to review. And so we did so, and the ordinance allows for electric fencing as proposed to be within the industrial and mixed use zones for commercial and industrial uses for outdoor storage purposes. So there's caveats within that of who can do it and when. It establishes that the maximum height of the fence is to be permitted based off of what the development code already allows within the city, so that we don't have anything beyond the current permissible uses. It would require electric fences to be placed behind a non-electrified fence. And in the situation when you're close to public areas, public right-of-ways, parkings, trails, sidewalks, and residential areas, then that fencing needs to be of a type to where somebody can't reach their hand through to then touch said electrical fence. So that's a protection mechanism. And then also to require signage for the emergency response individuals to know that there's an electrified fence on the property, and to provide for an emergency shut off for the fire district through their Knox box system. And we did speak with police and fire prior to putting this together, and they had those two items that we just addressed, the signage and the emergency shut off, were the two major points of concern. And so those have been addressed. And so with that, we have the proposed ordinance in front of you, and I'm available to answer any questions.
I'm curious, what is the voltage that's going to be on this fence?
I think we actually have that in the ordinance, that there's a restriction. I think it's like 12 volts. Something like that. The standard that we saw in ordinance languages was 12 volts. We identified that it needs to meet the International Electrotechnical Commission standards for voltage, and they set the standard for that.
Did Counselor Bolin, did he review this as fire marshal?
I've had multiple conversations with Council Bolin, but I did not provide him the ordinance language ahead of time.
Okay,
Based off of those conversations, his biggest issues was making sure he had emergency access, which is already a requirement for these types of facilities that have fencing that's secured, and that it's appropriately signed.
Okay.
And so those
since he
continue to
brought
be
it up, a constituent brought it up with him, that's why I want to make sure. And he had an emergency that he had to cover for tonight, so he couldn't be here.
I've spoken with the individuals who originally requested it when they were originally looking at the type of fencing, and this would address their requests.
Okay.
Good job.
Any other questions?
Just one, sorry, just one quick question. The mixed use, so no, this will not be in any residential area. Mixed use would be like, what's an example of in Lebanon that's zoned like that, like a.
We have a large swath of land that is zoned mixed use, but the language that we have in the code says that it can be within that zone, but only when it's classified for industrial or commercial uses. So you're not going to have a electrified fence around an apartment complex. So for example, the Mill Race project up on the north end of the city, that's a mixed use zone. They have personal storage facility there next to an apartment complex. And so in that instance, their personal storage facility is a commercial use within the mixed use zone. So they'd be eligible to use the electrified fencing, but they have to meet the higher standard because they're next to residential uses, that the fencing around it in front of it can't have people penetrating items through it to then touch the electrified fence.
Okay. Okay, I understand now. Thank you.
Jim?
Two questions. Do you think that there will be others that'd be interested in doing this later on? That's number one. And number two, is there any discussion on the installer, meaning professional installation company putting this versus a farmer who has experience doing it on his agricultural land?
So for the first question, yes, I would imagine that there are some uses that would jump at the opportunity to do this. Those uses that have valuable outdoor storage areas would likely identify the cost benefit analysis, and it would be an option that they might want to take. We put in the ordinance that they shall obtain an electric permit. And so you have to be a certified and licensed electrician to be able to pull a permit that for electric work, which means that addresses any concerns about a farmer doing it on their own.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, I have the city attorney read the ordinance bill number.
Ordinance bill number 2021-11, ordinance number 2967, a bill for an ordinance amending section 8.04.180 of the Lebanon Municipal Code concerning electric fence regulations.
Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve ordinance bill 2021-11. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ordinance passes. Thank you, Kelly. Number 6, communication facility agreement with Consumer Power. Brent Hurst, our IT director.
Mr. Mayor and City Council, we are bringing in a motion.
You're not on.
Do I need to go a little closer?
Yeah.
Can you help me with this? I need to project.
There you go.
There we
There
go.
you go.
Mr. Mayor and City Council, we have a proposal here to trade property that we own, which is a radio tower on Peterson's Butte, for maintenance of our fiber within the city and for CPI to help us to construct additional fiber in the city. And so kind of a backstory, there is the information here in the packet. About 2005, the city assumed ownership of a radio tower up on Peterson's Butte. The site is very difficult to get to, and I've been up there many times. It's definitely four-wheel drive. We got the property for free, and we made improvements on it. At the time, there was the director for the city, as well as they had another person on the IT staff who knew radios. Since I have arrived at the city, we don't have that same expertise in-house, and so we have outsourced that work. We also have a lot of fiber that we own that connects our city sites, and there are additional city sites that would benefit from our own fiber. And so CPI approached us. They have other communications radio towers they use because they're a utility. So for instance, they own a tower on Mary's Peak. And so if there's an electrical outage, that's their backup as well. So their proposal to us was that they would like to take ownership of the tower. The city retains the right to use the radio equipment we already have on the tower for police and for utility, for fire. And that will continue at no charge to the city for as long as CPI owns the tower. And what we also are seeking is we're seeking access to CPI's fiber network. So CPI is building out a very extensive fiber network around the city of Lebanon, and now in East Lacombe. Peak Network is a holding company of theirs. And so this gives us high-speed access for city uses, and it drastically reduces the costs to the city. And so it's kind of a trade to get rid of or offload some maintenance that's not our area of expertise, and allow CPI to do what they do best, which is maintain that fiber network and help us with the radio tower. So my recommendation is to pass a proposal for the trade of the fiber and the tower, the radio tower up on Peterson's Butte.
Is it tied to that specific tower, or if CPI, let's say 15 years from now, whole new council, CPI switches out the equipment on that tower, but they retain ownership, and that no longer benefits the city? I mean, is there verbiage to protect us in that case?
Trey worked with me on that, and yes, we did put verbiage in there so that we have inventoried what we have up there right now, but we also put in the contract that we have the right to use perpetually a city use for our communications needs on that tower. So for instance, we're putting in smart meters around the city, and Peterson's Butte is a potential site that we would want to transmit wirelessly to allow citizens to real-time read their water meters.
Oh, nice.
So that would be something we could still attach equipment up there if that was the best site for us to do that under this agreement.
You've addressed councils 20 and 30 years from now, or whatever,
Exactly.
long-term.
Correct.
Who pays for the equipment when it breaks down?
The equipment that transmits the radio signals would be the city's responsibility.
And we still own it, so.
And we still own it. The hut, which needs repairs as of now, the lights on the tower, which also need repairs, that becomes responsibility of CPI. The land is leased from the Lester family. Then there's access leases as well, but the tower hut itself and the structure is what CPI would be taking ownership of.
A very valuable communication point. I mean,
It's critical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is, but I can see also that the city doesn't want to be in the
Right.
repairing building and tower business because it's very specialized.
It's extremely specialized and
and
we just don't have a big enough IT staff. It's very hard to justify the cost of staffing that. And so when they proposed that we relinquish ownership and that they would help us and also give us right to still be on that tower, I thought that was favorable to the city.
Win-win.
Very good, yeah.
Yep.
Any other questions? Okay. Entertain a motion?
Move for approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the communications facility agreement with Consumer Power. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Brent.
Thank you.
And next up, city managers report. Nancy Brewer,
I'm gonna try and do this fast, but I have quite a few things to cover, so.
you're not
Your
on.
mics.
Not on.
Okay,
There you
there
go.
we go. Hey, look at the blue light and I think it's on. So first of all, Kelly and I have had a couple of conversations with Cassie Cruz at the Downtown Association. They are interested in taking on the Arts Commission. We are continuing to have conversations about how that transition would work and responsibilities and activities. So that work continues. Thank you. I cannot give enough kudos to IT and the work they have done over the last couple of weeks with some really significant intrusion efforts into networks worldwide, including the latest, I don't even know what it's called, the denial of print services or something through Microsoft. That today the federal government came out and said for all federal agencies, you needed to disconnect your printers until you got it fixed. And our own Nico had already been on that and fixed it last week. So these are I can't even begin to count how many thousands of efforts to get into the system are out there, and IT just hammers it and hammers it. So good job. I noted in my written report, compliment for Public Works staff. I've had a couple more since then in terms of people really appreciating some of the efforts that Public Works staff have been doing. It's the best kind of phone call to get. Just no holds barred on that one. I did attend the Oregon City County Managers Association meeting last week, some good sessions, in particular on community engagement, as we look at heading into comprehensive plan and potential visioning work and trying to engage the community. I got to say, I was hoping for a silver bullet. If you use this thing, you get awesome 90% of the population participating, but even communities, all of the efforts, Gresham spent a lot of time on some community engagement, particularly around COVID. And they said, yeah, they went from their usual 300 people to 1,000 people, which was great. But on a population of 100,000, it still really isn't hitting the broad community. So we're going to be working on how we might seek more creative ways to get community input into those two efforts. My last short one, we got a check yesterday for $257,000, completely unexpected. That's the kind of mail you like to open. We have discovered that it is ARPA money that's come from the federal government to the state of Oregon through ODOT to ODOT local governments, and it comes with kind of a no strings attached, but it is supposed to be for revenue loss, and barring council discussion about doing something else with the money. And we have a long list of something else's that we would like to pursue, but we won't. We are looking to just deposit that money into the street fund and use it for street fund projects that we have. We have such a high need for street projects that money, since it came through ODOT, seems like it links to street work. So unless you tell us otherwise, that's where we're going with it. My last item, there's been a lot of kind of discussion about camping in town and homeless people. So I'm going to try and do this as quickly as I can and sum up. You all know that we had the Boise case, and the Boise case basically said you can't criminally punish people for sleeping outside if there's no place else to go. It doesn't say you have to let people camp, meaning like build shelters in the public right of way. You do kind of have to let people sleep in public places if there's no place else. You had the Grants Pass case that came up. It broadened Boise, that moved beyond just criminal fines to also say you can't have civil violations or punitive fines. That came out of Grants Pass, I think, assessing people $5,000 for sleeping in the park, and that was considered to be punitive. But again, it does not say that the city has to provide a shelter. It doesn't say that you have to be able to camp anywhere, anytime. And then we get to the 2021 legislative session. There were 4 kind of significant bills that passed this session and are now law. The biggest one, HB 3115, is in effect. It's been signed. It is law immediately, but it doesn't become operative for 2 more years. So it becomes operative on July 1 of 2023. That gives us some time to work on our ordinances. It does require us to identify public places where people can sleep, not to camp, not to build fires, not to build structures, but where they can sleep. And it does allow us to assign some objectively reasonable limits on where those places would be located. That is what the task force is going to be working with us on in terms of what we have as objectively reasonable limits. I will tell you that we have a staff group that has started looking at city-owned, actually I should say publicly owned property. There's federal land, state land, county land, and Lebanon-owned land inside the city limits. We have cut out kind of a whole bunch of sites as being not appropriate. Water treatment plant, wastewater treatment plant, pump stations, lift stations. We have riparian areas around town. The federal land most of the time is along the railroad tracks, which we think is not a safe place for people to sleep. So we're trying to look at, are there some places that we can identify, publicly owned places that would be appropriate for people to sleep? And we can take that list to the task force and then start talking about what would be, are those of the list, short list of sites, what does the task force want to recommend we would look at, and then what would be the reasonable accommodations that we would look at pursuing there. Again, the state law does not require us to let people build fires or build structures. It doesn't require us to let people build a camp and then just live there nonstop for forever. There are some communities who are saying, yes, you can camp on the sidewalk in front of City Hall, but a reasonable restriction is you got to leave 36 inches of space for access for pedestrians, and you can only be here from 6 p.m. until 6 a.m. and then you have to leave because then we're open for business. You can't block doorways. So we're looking at what some other communities are doing, and the League of Oregon Cities, I think we're hoping to give us some assistance on that. Also, we have next bills. If I'm going too fast, just stop me or throw a hand up here. I am going too slow on my scrolling here because I have to have notes on these because my brain starts messing up. House Bill 3124 is also in effect now. All of these bills were immediately effective. This one requires 72 hours of notice before we would clear a camp. And then it's got restrictions on what we do with items that we take out of a camp, how we might determine what has value or potential value, what would have no value, and what to do with those. We would have to identify a storage location where people can go and obtain their items afterwards. There are some notice requirements now in terms of saying where you would be able to find your things, when you would be able to have access to them, and then also the requirement that we would provide information about social services that would be available to help you out in terms of finding a different place to live. That one is not significantly different than what we have been doing. The notice has gotten longer in terms of giving people more time to find an alternative.
Nancy, can I clarify that? I mean, as somebody who often cleans up garbage in town, I do. There are times I'm cleaning up an area where I know somebody is at least nesting, but do I have a restriction in when I'm doing that? Am I?
If you are doing it as a private citizen, I'm looking at Trey here to make sure this is right. I think you don't have that restriction, but the city does when we act as a government body.
Okay.
Yeah, and I mean, I think there's a I think there's a difference on picking up wrappers and and garbage and stuff like that, if that's what we're talking about. I mean, you're not,
No, I'm talking, yeah, blankets, shirts, underclothing, and much worse that I won't say, but I'm not inventorying anything. I'm simply taking tongs and tossing.
And so for you as a citizen, that's different. For the city as a government entity, we would have to
Okay.
determine whether or not those blankets have value or potential value. And if they do, then we would have to secure them and hold them. And that notice would have to say, you can claim your things at this location. And that, do you want to say something, Frank? Because you look like you're.
Yeah, I was just, I'm thinking I would caution you on removing anyone's blankets or anything that can be hold of value. Even as a private citizen, they could come back on you and say, I had these items out there and Rebecca came by, picked them up and stole them from me. So the best.
It is not something that that I
Right.
like to do anyway. I prefer to call you and have you guys do it. It is just something that has occasionally happened where,
Yeah.
and it's clearly when it's not in current use.
Right.
Generally.
Yeah, rubbish and trash, and if it can hold no value, then you're safe. But if it looks like it could contain any value whatsoever, just give us a call, let us know, and we'll come deal with it.
Okay, my next one up, HB 2006. This moves into Kelly's arena. We all love Kelly for this. This gets into a lot of land use stuff in terms about locating emergency shelters, and basically takes away the ability for the local government to say that's not an appropriate location for an emergency shelter. Basically, unless it's like a riparian area or I think zoned heavy industrial, any place in the urban growth boundary, somebody wants to locate a shelter, they can. It does put some limits on how long that shelter has to continue to operate or can close and then reopen in that location. It does also kind of get into whether or not local governments are operating it. And if not, the entities that operate a shelter have to have some experience operating a shelter for homeless individuals, or be working with like a local housing authority that has that experience, a religious group that has that experience. So it's not just, I'm going to open a shelter and call it good. I think the goal here is for those shelters to provide services to homeless people, not maybe just a place to sleep for the night, but also those wraparound services, getting mental health or connection with a job training center, those kinds of things to help. Those limits, those requirements, it says you can place that shelter any place. That part of the bill expires in a year, July 1 of 2022. Any shelter that's sited between now and then would basically be permanently allowable as a shelter in that location. But if you come in next August and said, I want to put this in the middle of downtown, we said that's not appropriate zoning, then that's not going to be appropriate zoning at that point. The bill also includes motor vehicle accommodations in terms of allowing motor vehicle camping, and that's both things like RVs and automobiles. And so they've expanded what used to be just kind of huts, yurts, cabins, tents to include RVs, whether they're self-contained or not. If you're going to have motor vehicle camping, there are some restrictions. And again, we have some opportunity for some reasonable restrictions, but you have to provide sanitary facilities. So think porta pot, hand washing, garbage disposal opportunities. That all, we have a lot of that in our code now, including kind of the ability to set a maximum number of vehicles in a particular parking lot. And then they also provide some funding through that bill for shelter construction and operation. The biggest concern I have about it is I'm not sure that funding moves beyond the current biennium. And so if you're looking for that funding for construction, it probably works well. But if you're looking for that funding in terms of operating, I'm not sure in 2 years, you're still going to have that funding source for operating a staff shelter. So that's something that we'll need to have some examination of. So long and short, that's the summary of the bills so far. As I noted, we have an internal work group that includes engineering, community development, public works, police, and me. And we need to rope in city attorney, looking at how we start trying to figure out how we operationalize this and put together some criteria that we would like the task force to maybe consider for how we would set reasonable accommodation limits. So that's where we are. I will say there's nothing in these bills that says you get to put your tent in Academy Square. That is a facility that we rent, $75 a day. If you want to rent it for $75 for the day and put your tent there, that's fine. But otherwise, that's an open park for people to use. I think that what we've talked about is if people want to be in a park and sleep, they may do that, but our current code has hours that those parks close, and they are closed to everyone. And so that doesn't mean you get to stay all night or you get to move in and live there for the next 6 months. That there are some reasonable accommodations in place now. And because we have 2 years to operationalize that, we can continue to have those hours of limits on when you can be camping in a park in a neighborhood.
If I may, so all of those pieces that you mentioned are effective now, but we have those 2 years then to go through our own code and make sure that they're compliant with the state's regulations and laws that were recently passed. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So during this 2-year time, we can still use the existing code that we have on file, even if it's not congruent with what was passed. I'm unclear on that piece.
No, we're still
Okay.
subject to the legal rulings in Boise and what's the other one?
Grants Pass.
Grants Pass.
Okay.
Okay, that's completely separate. So we still can't violate basically what the holdings of those cases were, which we aren't doing things like that since they came down. What the state has done is said, okay, let's try to have a uniform system of addressing this. And here's going to be the parameters. And we're going to give the cities and counties, 2 years to figure out what's going to work for them, as long as you comply with this, and this, which is what Nancy kind of went through.
Okay. Okay. I think I got it.
I will tell you, it's complex. It is really complex. And a lot of this is going to wrap up right now. There are some aspects of this that are easier than others, and that state law says you have to let people be warm and dry. That actually came out of the Boise case. You have to let people be warm and dry. Well, in July here, warm and dry does not require a fire, and it doesn't require a tent, and it doesn't require much of anything. It's warm and dry everywhere.
Sure.
But I think as we approach winter, that may become a little bit more challenging in terms of where can people be warm and dry. I will say the city does not have resources to open and run a shelter. And that's both, we don't have the cash to do that, but we also don't have the professional staff and training to do that. If there were other groups or a coalition of groups that wanted to open a shelter, particularly for the winter, that might be one possible solution in terms of here's a place where you can go and stay warm and dry. But that moves much more into a community-based initiative than a city-sponsored initiative.
Absolutely. Okay.
And with that, any other questions, I would be happy to answer.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Nancy.
Thank you.
That was a lot. A lot of stuff going on at the state level. Okay, items from council. I have one thing real quick. We are going to do an evaluation for our city manager, our interim city manager. And that will be at the next meeting. And so the city recorder will email you guys questionnaire with a July 21st due date. I would ask that you get them done as soon as possible, because they have to compile all the information and bring it back to the next meeting so that we can actually see the results. And we will do it in an executive session. And that will be on What's the date on that? That'll be the August meeting, August 11th. Does that sound right, Kim?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, that's what's, okay, very good. So it'll be August 11th, and then and also the directors will get review forms also, and then you'll return those to Kim.
Yeah, you can see them rubbing their hands back there.
Yeah, look at that.
Got it already.
Okay, so that was my thing. Does that cover that, Kim? Good. Okay, and any other comments, council comments?
I had one thing. I wanted to thank Chief Stevenson. When we did have some tents there in Academy Square, I had a phone call from an individual that was like, why are there tents in Academy Square? And I quickly reached out to Chief Stevenson, and he got back to me, although he was on vacation, which I have told him, please do not do that anymore. And there was a very quick response from the city, and I really appreciated the clarification I received from that, and as well as Nancy's very in-depth rundown of everything that that has happened over the last 9 months or whatever in Salem. So thank you. I appreciate all of that.
Thanks.
And a side note on that is, and Nancy said it very well, is that with our laws that we have in the city, you can't be there all night because it's a rental facility and the park closes. And one of the agencies, local agencies that's helping out people that are homeless, told the police department that it was okay now because the legislature passed a law. So that's not true. Just want to make that very clear, that just because someone says it, that's helping people out, does not mean that's true. And so it was kind of an awkward situation, I'm sure, for that. So, but anyways, thank you guys for handling that. And, I think it was your captain that was out there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
captain and
so
a
that
couple
was-
sergeants. and-
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. Okay. And then Rebecca, do you have
I
something?
did. I quit. No.
sorry.
Oh, yeah, no.
Applause. Hit the applause button.
No. Most of you know, I've brought this up. I did move into a different ward, and it is my intention to open my seat up to somebody in Ward 2 to finish my my term. And so in speaking to our city clerk, the timing, I'm not in any hurry. I can continue. And August is pretty tight, so I'm pretty open to leaving the timing up to our city clerk, and so she'll decide when to put that out, and not decide like a year from now. That's not okay. But just not August. We have a very full August, and we can leave this for let's say a September meeting. So that is my intention at this point. That's it.
Well, I'm almost sorry to see you go.
I know. You want to say so much and go for it.
We'll
I
hang
don't
around
care.
for a while. You'll hang around. And Kim will work on that, getting we'll just do the same exact process that we did for the last position, is basically advertise it, have a deadline date, and get people in, and then we'll do interviews, just like we did last time.
I like it.
So, okay.
We're gonna have public
There'll be public comments in just a minute. Just a second here. Okay, was there anything else from council?
Mayor, if I may.
Yes.
I just want to the hardest working team in the valley, just kudos and congratulations to our staff and team. They do a fantastic job, and I love talking to them and learning from them. So
Yeah.
keep up the good work, and congratulations to everybody.
Very good.
And I do have a question about the AmeriCorps position. The AmeriCorps, if I remember correctly, AmeriCorps, you normally have to house them as well. And I know that you got a $10,000 possibly from the Ford Foundation. So is that working out, and the cost and all that? Is that going to be able to work out, or are we going to have to dish out some money for that?
If you'd like me to yell, that's the rare student application.
Yeah.
It's already budgeted within the city's budget cycle. We incorporated that for this budget for the $22,500 hour contribution. And we are not required to, maybe. We are not required to house them, but we are requested from the corporation to provide them opportunities and help them identify housing sources.
Mhm.
But we don't have a requirement to specifically house them.
But to
We
pay
did
for it?
receive- Huh?
To pay for it though?
we don't require that either. But we did also receive a Ford Family Foundation grant of $10,000 to help supplement the 23,500 that we got from, that we budgeted already as well.
Great job. Congrats.
All right, thank you, Kelly. Anything else? Okay, seeing none. We have another opportunity for the public to comment. If you'd like to come up, we can, if you'd like to speak again.
Yes, I have a question on number 4. The art. We didn't catch how much that was being given to the city.
That was $4,000.
$4,000.
4,000. That's not really given to us. That's
Is a grant.
taxpayer money. You realize that, right? It's not free money. It's a grant, but it's taxpayer dollars.
Right.
That's
We are here to oversee
paying for
taxpayer
eventually.
dollars, right?
Any money that's given to us, we pay for eventually. I just want you to know, when you voted that in, you raise our taxes. That's what happens.
That money though would go, they took $100,000 and they gave it to communities. Us saying no would just mean that money would go to other communities.
Yeah. I
So,
know.
so
I
we,
realize.
so we
that.
choose to bring it here or nothing. That is this council's choice.
I realize that, but
Okay.
I'm just saying that money is not free. It's
Fair.
everybody pays for it.
Sure.
And number 5, the electrified fence. I don't quite understand what the reasoning is for that. The electrified fence, if that's, is that for all businesses that's building apartment buildings or?
No, that's in industrial areas. The reason that came up was a constituent came to one of the counselors and brought it to council that they're illegal, that we couldn't have electric fences anywhere in the city. And this is allowing a business to have that. The one business got broken into by the fence being cut. I believe that's what it was,
I
wasn't
think
it?
it was.
It is-
It's a storage, this
facility.
request came from the one of the public storage spaces where people keep cutting the fence, breaking in and stealing things off of like stored RVs and boats that are there. So they're needing to increase security.
And it's specifically for industrial areas. It's not for in the middle of town.
Right.
Well, it's pretty close. I mean, there's a lot of thieving going on anyway. I mean, you've mentioned that already. Electric fence, how much, how many volts are you talking about?
12 volts, I believe, is what was
That's
discussed.
the question I asked, and she said 12 volts.
12 volts.
12 volts.
And anybody who's climbed inappropriately climbed over a fence out hunting knows that it'll kick you in the butt, but it ain't gonna really hurt you.
But I think that's a really good example of exactly what you were talking about. Public input. Here's a business owner in the community who had a problem, brought it to the council and came up with a solution. And we looked at it, did some investigating and created a solution for that, for our Lebanon business owner to protect his property.
That's not a Lebanon business owner.
It's not,
No.
it's not a
It's
Lebanon
government.
business.
The security, it was a government security facility?
No, it was a
a
private, it was a
government.
private storage company.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but it's a government project.
No, it's
We're not
not.
paying for an electric fence for the property owner.
No, we just approved that they could have one if they paid for it themselves.
Right.
Had nothing to do with any government money, as far as I know.
Yeah, but the buildings are government.
Mm-mm.
No, it's a private company.
It's a private company.
Yeah, there's no government involved.
No,
Yes, there is. Joe Biden is on the signs. Those are government buildings. Have you been there?
To the storage facility,
No. To the building site
to the storage facility building site.
by Walmart.
Oh, no, that's a different project. That's a,
Project.
yeah, that's not what we're talking
no.
about here.
Okay, your time is up. Thank you very much. With that, we don't have any press here, so there's no press comments. And lastly, and by the way, just so everybody knows, and I think everybody knows this, in talking with Les from the Lebanon Express, hi Les.
Yeah.
They're, and I think this is the way it is even with the Lebanon local, it's easier for them just to watch it on tape so they can take their notes and go. So that's why they're not coming to the meeting. Doesn't mean they're not representing themselves. It's just that they're not showing up because they can watch the meetings online and do it that way. Next scheduled meeting is July 28th at noon. It's an electronic work session. And that's the 28th. If you can't make it, please let us know.
Mayor, let me say how happy I am to have you back and see you in
Thank
your
you.
seat.
I appreciate it.
It's
And I
fantastic that you're
cannot
here.
tell you how happy I am to be back here. It's awesome. Thank you. And with that, we are adjourned.